give it a couple minutes, and then I will jump into my deal. Oh, perfect. I can actually mute you. Awesome. Live right now on YouTube. Come check it out. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I know we're starting a little late here, but I had some technical difficulties on my side. Good evening to those of you who are going to watch this later and are still asleep on this beautiful Saturday morning. We got some rain down here in Texas, and I know being in bed sounds pretty nice and cozy. We got something special for you guys this morning. Hang out. I know we always do a drink in the morning, but might have a little Irish coffee. Might have a little something in the coffee this morning that we're sipping on. So nothing too special that we're going to cover, but we're starting the day off right. So this morning we'll go through. I will cover the trivia question. Didn't have anybody answer it for the people that were watching last time, but we'll have a trivia question at the end of this one that's been provided by our guest that you guys can answer. So the trivia question from last time was true or false. When you're 3D target shooting, your arrow has to be completely in the ring of the higher number you're going for if it's going to count for those points. It can't be touching the line at all. If it's touching the line, it counts for the lower points. That is false. As long as your arrow is touching the line of the higher point, you get those points. So say for instance the middle ring is a 12 ring and the outer ring outside of that is a 10 ring. As long as you're nubbing that line on the 12, you get the 12. That's how archery shooting works. We're going to talk to a competitive firearm shooter today that might be able to tell us something different on the firearm side, but at least in archery, that is how it works. So maybe you guys learned something new, and like I said, we will have another trivia question for you at the end of this episode that if you get right, or you're the first in the comments to get right, I'll send you some knocked up stuff. So make sure you're watching and get that rolling. First thing, Razor's Edge events of the day. I didn't really have anything for you guys last time, but I read about this and wanted to kind of share it. Something with you guys. Glacier Bay National Park in Alaska has been toying with visitors coming to the park and how it affects wildlife. So for the past, X amount of time, the article that I was reading didn't really specify, but park rangers have set up game cameras in different locations to capture the wildlife and to capture human traffic in the park. So before human traffic, you would see, 4 or 5 animals a week go by, whether that's bear, whether that's elk, wolves, all sorts of stuff coming by those cameras. And then when they let the people come by and introduce, they're seeing maybe 1 or 2 a week in some areas. And that foot traffic can just be from, 5 to 10 humans. And then when they let it increase to about 30 or 40 humans, you would see maybe 1 animal a week. So to think that humans don't have an impact on animals is a little ridiculous, because we definitely do. And sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad. Up there in Alaska, the last wilderness is one of those places that we have to protect and preserve for our future, because you can just see by that little example. 40 people in a week, and you're declining your animal viewings by over 80%. That's quite alarming. The other thing that was alarming about it is the first to go were the wolves. The wolves ran out. There's speculation as to why, but top predators, and maybe they just wanted to stay concealed. And then you had bears behind that, and the last to go were actually elk. The elk were affected by humans, but they didn't seem too affected. Like, they actually used the humans as kind of a shield against predators, because they knew the humans weren't as much of a predator as the wolves. So while everything else decreased rapidly, the elk actually kind of stayed up, because they snapped that quickly in what they wanted to protect themselves with against the wolves. So that was kind of interesting. But regardless, we gotta look at the facts and say, we have an effect on these animals, whether it's for good or for bad. And what are we gonna do about it? Do we let nobody go into the park? Do we let some people go into the park? You've got a Yellowstone situation where we got highways going through a national park, and the wildlife, because it's been so long, have kind of adapted to it. But is there good, is there bad in that? That's a whole episode on itself. So let me know if you guys want me to get into that a little more. I think there's a lot there to uncover, but I thought that was interesting to share with you guys. So, oh man, give me 1 second here. All right. So last thing I'll do before I introduce our guest is make sure you guys go like the YouTube. Make sure you ring that bell so you know when we go live, and go follow the Instagram and the TikTok. That way you can stay up on all the events that we're throwing out there, and do that for me. That would be great. Just pick one, man. I throw the same things out on Instagram and TikTok. Instagram's got a little more posts that I can share. TikTok's more of the kind of content creation kind of stuff. So they're both great for me either way, and I appreciate it more than you know. But make sure you're hitting that subscribe bell on YouTube. That way you don't miss any lives. So without further ado, we might have to do some little technical stuff here quick, because I just got a pop-up. But the guest that I've got coming on today is an old friend, and honestly, I've done a terrible job of staying connected with him over the years. But we've kind of reconnected over the past few weeks with everything, and he is a competitive marksman on a lot of things. We met in college, and he's a great guy, and has got a lot of worldly experience in that realm that I don't. So it's going to be an interesting conversation. So I'm going to bring him in here, and then I might have to handle up on some Zoom stuff real quick before we get into the meat and potatoes of it. But anyway, without further ado, Mr. Jeremy Curran. How you doing, man? I'm good. Hey, are you getting a pop-up on your deal about Zoom ending in 10 minutes?
Yes, I am.
Apparently, I've got to upgrade to Zoom Pro in order to keep this meeting going. So I'm going to do that real quick.
Okay.
But while I'm doing that, my camera should still be rolling. Introduce yourself to the people, what you do for a living, what you like to do on the outside, and just tell us a little bit about yourself, man, while I'm handling up on this.
Cool. I think I can do that in about 7 minutes. So yeah, I've actually been in healthcare for the past 11 years. So, right after I met you in college, I moved back home. My mom is, she's actually a CFO at a hospital now. And she was the controller at the hospital here in Harker Heights. And she was like, hey, we need some help in supply chain. Would you be interested? And that's how I started. Kind of kept on going, finished up some schooling, got some professional certs, stayed in the supply chain management of healthcare. Now I work for it was a Colorado-based company, and they merged. So I work for Intermountain Healthcare now out of Utah, and it's cool because I get to work from home. So I'm actually in my home office right now. I work with their contracting team, so I do literally contracts for everything that pertains to healthcare, from elevators to security cameras. Working on one they have some fixed wing aircraft. We have some hospitals in Montana that are pretty remote. So it's been pretty broad, but it's fulfilling for me. I don't like blood, guts, that sort of thing. I don't want to get shot at as a cop. So this is how this is how I get to help people and, get to kind of stay behind the scenes.
Yeah, that's cool. So, I mean, you're kind of in the same realm there, but doing some different stuff.
Yeah, for sure. When I was at the hospital, I got, pretty immersed in what nurses do, what EMTs do, and kind of decided I don't want to do that. But like I said, with COVID and all that stuff, man, like I think everybody kind of realized how important supply chain is. And as far as like healthcare supply chain, I mean, you can have the best doctor in the world, the best nurse in the world, but they can't start an IV without an IV catheter. They can't push fluids if they don't have fluids. Can't put Band-Aids on you if they don't have Band-Aids. So, that's been my life for the last 10 years, is making sure those, awesome caregivers can do what they do, and have the things they need to take care of, patients. And I always think about that, like, what if it was my mom? What if it was me? What if it, was you, your family? Yeah. I just want everybody to have the things they need and, the right care to give to them.
That's cool.
But that's afforded me the ability to go hunting and fishing. And I like to shoot competitions. I do some sanction stuff like with USPSA, SCSA, that sort of thing. But I also will typically do, I don't know how it is in archery, but they call them like outlaw matches, to where it's kind of all the same normal setup, but either I don't really have to follow all the like equipment rules or stuff like that, which I like those a little bit more because it allows me to shoot like what I carry or what I hunt with, and not trying to make something fit the rules to shoot, fit what I want to shoot like on a normal basis, and then actually being able to use that in competition. And I feel like that makes me a better like hunter and stuff like that. When I'm going out hunting and that sort of thing, using the same equipment.
Let's see. Sorry, I'm almost done with this. It's like asking me, how many kids I've got and all sorts of crap just to log into this deal. I didn't know this was gonna be I didn't know this was a thing. Apparently, you can only have 10-minute Zoom meetings unless you pay for the license or whatever for it. So that's what I'm currently doing. But
yeah.
Anywho, that's interesting, man. Yeah, I got a lot of respect for the medical world. Obviously, I think you should, regardless of who you are. But that's crazy. I don't know that I could do that. I don't mind the blood and the guts of when you go hunting and stuff like that. But that's a whole different animal when you're talking about a human being. That's right there. So I don't know that I could have done that. So I have no bad things to say about you wanting to change your field, if you will.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I did some I was everywhere in the hospital doing supply chain. So like, I would see glimpses of some knee surgeries and glimpses of, people coming into the ER, and then, people in the ICU, and just, I realized pretty quickly that like doing that is not for me.
Yeah.
So
I don't think I could do it. I have an aunt that does that. I think she still works for CareFlight, and she doesn't do any of the actually on the helicopter kind of deal.
yeah,
So, but still, I mean, working for that company, you see a lot of stuff, right? So, I can only imagine the stuff that she's going through. So that's cool that you've got that experience behind your belt of doing that, where a lot of people don't. And I think it kind of gives you that perspective. You go out on maybe a backcountry hunt. You'd be someone I'd want in my back pocket, right? Because you may not like it, but at least you know what you're doing if some, shit were to hit the fan, right? To whereas I've, read a couple books, and, you watch the YouTube videos, and I got my tourniquet in the back, and, I'm all high and mighty, but, someone like you in the back pocket would definitely be a lot better than a YouTube degree, if you will.
I would say that's kind of how I have to, as much time as I spend around firearms, I know how to, apply a chest seal. I know how to do a tourniquet, know some of the tips and tricks on supplies that aren't meant for one thing, but you can use them for something else.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm a nerd when it comes to that stuff. So I always have I have an IFAK for massive hemorrhaging. And then I also carry my boo-boo kit, which gets used more than anything. But,
right.
I know about that from there. I've talked to a lot of nurses and a few doctors and stuff on that type of stuff. But what really had me is, do you have an InReach, or have you used one?
Isn't that like a Garmin deal?
Yeah, so I just pay for the $20 service a month just to keep it up and running, and it just stays in my backpack, just in case I don't have cell service or something.
Yeah, I get the options of that when I went on a backcountry hunt this year about buying one or not. And
I think they're pretty good, and I get their newsletter on whenever they do saves or whatever, or people that have had to hit the SOS button. Man, you'd be surprised how many bow hunters drop a broadhead and shove it through their leg 6 miles back.
A freaking 2-inch razor blade is going to do some damage regardless of where it goes into your body, Yeah,
I mean, I've seen a few where, a guy had his bow on his backpack or something, and he's like, ow, and looks down, and there's broadhead went through his thigh or calf. I mean, how sharp those things are. So, to think that you wouldn't need a tourniquet or, packing gauze or anything like that, that makes it pretty real that, you're not in a combat situation or anything like that, but something as stupid as, hell, my brother cut half of his finger off on my dad's elk hunt. He was making kindling for the fire and slipped with an axe.
Yeah, I mean, it's
and sliced the whole front of his finger off and had to drive 2.5 hours to town to go get stitched up.
Yeah.
So it's just, the simplest things. You can get hurt. You can fall and break a leg, especially if you're packing out an animal. And even if you're not and you're just stupid, I've been fishing and jumped down and rolled an ankle, right? So
yeah.
I think it's always smart to just have that stuff no matter what.
Yeah, we were on when we went on our bear hunt, we didn't have an InReach or anything like that, but we had pretty decent cell service besides the valley bottoms where we were. I mean, we weren't in 7,000 or 8,000 elevation. We didn't even get up to 2,500, I don't think. So, I mean, it wasn't too terrible and had cell service. So we didn't have one, but we were hiking one day and we did 8 miles in and 8 miles out all in the same day. And it was rough. About 80% through, man, I had some bad food or whatever, and I was sweating bullets. And I mean, I was like, dude, we got 2 miles left out of here, and all I want you to do is carry me out of here in your arms. And that's what I told my boy, and he was like, well, here's the thing, I'm not doing that. So you're gonna have to get your ass up. And
but I've got butt wipes.
And at that moment, I was like, man, I wish that there was somebody I could call with an ATV because I don't want to walk any more steps. So, yeah, I could see how it'd be definitely useful of doing that. I would probably look into it if I was going to do something a little more extreme than what we were doing on. There was another brand that I was looking at, and it wasn't Garmin.
Spot, probably.
Yes, yeah, that was correct.
Yeah.
I don't know the differences between. I didn't do a whole lot of research, and I heard, I don't, don't quote me on this, but I heard that the new iPhone is going to come with SOS GPS that you can pay for, just like Garmin. I'd have to do some research on the back end of that, but it was just kind of a blurb of what I heard. It's going to come with, hell, I don't know what number they're on, iPhone 17 now or something. I don't even know what I have. But the newest one that's coming out, the Pro or whatever, you can get a $15 a month subscription, and it won't do anything but send a beacon. Like there's no messaging, there's no calling. It's just like you turn it on, hopefully somebody comes. So.
Yeah, that's what's cool about the Garmin is they actually have like a call center that waits for that stuff, and you can text them. So thankfully I've never had to use the SOS function, but I have used the texting function to like when we're on the elk hunt, no service. I could tell my mom, like I was with my brother and my dad, like, hey, we're not dead.
Yeah.
Instead of the old school ways, like my dad grew up, hunting in the backcountry. And, like I know when he first met my mom, he'd be like, here's a map. This is where I'm going. If I'm not back by Wednesday, call my dad.
Mm-hmm.
He'll get the horses and they'll go look. But like, I mean, I know technology's come a long way, but that kind of sounds, pretty scary. Like, if you don't hear from me in a week, come looking. Yeah, I did. Versus like, hey, I can send a message and say, hey, I broke my leg, send somebody to help me, and you might have help in 12 hours, a couple hours or whatever. But I mean, definitely old school. You get hurt, like you got to either get yourself out or wait till somebody comes to find you.
Yeah. Well, I gave my wife, before we left, my my Onyx login. So, we would use our phones and it tracks your location. And I told her, I was like, yeah, I'm going to track our hikes and label them and everything and whatever. And you'll be able to see where our base camp is. I said, if you see this little dot right here at the end of this blue line, not move for like a full day and we don't make it back to camp, I need you to call somebody. She's like, okay, So, there's always something in place. Oh, that's cool. Well, awesome, man. And I feel like a terrible friend, and maybe you won't be able to remember this either, but I feel like it was kind of organically on how we met, but for whatever reason, I was racking my brain for like the specifics of like, man, that was the moment that I met Jeremy. I can't remember for the freaking life of me, dude. I got, a million other things going on and I feel like a shitty person, but maybe you could shed some light on that. And if you can't either, don't feel bad at all because clearly I can't. So I've already put my neck out there as being a terrible person. So go for it. Do you remember?
Man, I don't. I mean, we played ball together for a little bit, and you had already had a motorcycle, I think, and like I had decided like I want to get one, and then like we just kind of bullshitted about it, and I went and bought one without my license and came home, and you were like, hey, I'll show you how to ride it. And like, I'm pretty sure like you walked me kind of through it because I literally bought that bike like sight unseen, didn't test ride it, had no idea really how to ride it.
You had that, and you had that 250. It was red.
I did. Right? I bought a Ninja 250,
and
there was an abandoned neighborhood or something behind my apartment complex or a new neighborhood, but it had roads and everything. And I know that we rode around there for like 10 minutes and it was like, all right, let's go down the highway.
Yeah. I was like, all right, you're good. You didn't fall over. So I guess we're ready to ride.
I literally started riding my bike to work after that, like every day, just because, I mean, that thing got like 60 miles a gallon,
Oh, dude, it's awesome. Yeah, my R6 was the best thing I ever purchased because it was, you fill the tank up, and if you're just staying around town, I mean, you can go a week
Well,
without
yeah,
having to fill it up.
and
I mean,
back
you get
then,
10
I
minutes down the
mean,
road, 10
even
minutes
with
back.
like the high octane gas, I mean, I think what it cost us maybe like $9 to
Maybe,
fill
yeah.
up.
Back then, back when gas prices didn't cost you your second mortgage, yeah, it was like, oh, I gotta go fill my tank up, $12.50. Oh no, whatever.
Yeah,
It'd go 180 miles. But man, those were the good days. Those were the good days. I do remember that. And you had that little red, that Ninja 250, and yeah, that was fun. That R6, man, that I had way too much power. I got in way too much trouble with that thing.
dude. I don't, because I ended up moving back home like shortly after that. I think I only had that 250 for like maybe 3 or 4 months, and I traded it in on a Yamaha FZ1, which was basically like an upright version of an R1, pretty much. And I mean, I think the fastest I ever did on that thing was like 178 miles an hour.
Oh yeah.
And 10 years ago, I was a little younger and stupid, like and I could be going down the highway doing about 60, 65, drop it into second gear and throw it up on one wheel.
The things you can do.
I ended up getting rid of that, though, after a couple of years, and I bought a truck, and that's when I sold it. And then more recently, I bought, the only new vehicle I ever bought was I guess it was an 18, I think, Ninja. Oh man, it's slipping my mind. It was the 600, but it was not the 636, not the sport bike. It was the sit up version.
Let's see.
Oh, why it's slipping my mind right now, but I bought that, rode it around for a while. It was pretty slow. Like I think it maybe topped out at like 120. It was all mid end, but got really good gas mileage. And then I really just became lazy and not like scared of it, but like, if it's cold, you gotta put on extra clothes and blah, blah. And I just kind of started getting lazy and would just start driving my truck. So then I ended up selling it pretty much for what I owed on it, and, didn't lose anything. So
yeah. Was it the ZX6R?
No, it wasn't. It was the ZX6. That's the sport bike version.
That's the sport model. And I mean, you got the Ninja 600, but yeah, those things are dangerous, and dangerous in a good way, in my opinion.
Oh, 650, the Ninja 650. That's what it was.
Straight up 650. Yeah, those things will get you in trouble if you're not careful. I remember there was one day I was coming back from my, at the time, girlfriend's house, who's my wife now, and it was like, I don't know, 11:30 midnight or something, and I was on 635. Nobody's around. I mean, like, I can't even see tail lights in front of me. I can't see headlights behind me, and I'm like, what the hell, right? I'm going the speed limit, 65, 70 miles an hour, and I was like, nah, fuck it, let's see what I can do, right? So I just pop it open, throw it up on one wheel, and before I know it, I'm going like 180. And yeah, it didn't end well for the conversation I had to have with the police officer that was tucked under the freaking overpass, like a mile down there. Like the one time that I'm gonna blare it open on a highway. So you can go 0 to 100, 0 to 200 pretty quick on those things. But I sold the worst mistake I ever made, hands down. And in the vehicle world, I've made plenty of other mistakes, but in the vehicle world, was selling that R6. And I bought a Yamaha 1100 Cruiser, in the not in the sport bike realm, because at the time I was going back and forth to see my wife play soccer, and dude, riding 3 hours on a crotch rocket is not exactly nice for your lower back. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna get one of these things. So I sold it and bought this Cruiser, and it was comfortable. It was great. I got nothing wrong with the bike itself. But it just didn't give me that rush, man. That's what I had it for, was a rush. And It's funny that I say that, because now, like, looking back on what I would buy, I always told my wife, I was like, if I were to get another motorcycle, I just have to get 2 because I'd have to get an R6 and I'd have to get like a Harley, because there's something to be said about the cruiser. You just rolling around and you're just chilling, girl on the back, hanging out. And then there's something about, I've kind of had a shitty day and I want to go about 180 miles an hour, and you just hop on that thing and So I'd have to get both. I don't think I could pick between one or the other.
I get it.
But those are good times. All right, man. Well, let's talk about some other stuff while you're here, and what I want to learn, honestly, because I know quite a bit about the archery world, but the most I know about the gun world is, I got a few stashed around the house in case somebody wants to get frisky, and I got a Remington 270 for deer that I haven't shot in God knows how long, and the classic AR, because everybody wants one, but man, I don't know a whole lot. So tell me how you got into shooting, how you got into competitive shooting, and what you like to shoot, and why.
So I've always, I grew up in California. Don't tell nobody. So I moved to Texas when I was 10, but my grandpa was, an outdoorsman, had family in Minnesota. So, we'd always be up in Minnesota. We'd go grouse hunting. I had a gun at like 3 years old. I don't know, like a little chipmunk 22 rifle. And I was always kind of brought up around the whole firearm safety thing. And, so, I've been hunting like literally my entire life, fishing my entire life. And then, so obviously as you get older, get that 243, 270, whatever your parents give you, 410 shotgun.
The old 410.
And I think so I always had that like background, I guess. And then my dad was in law enforcement for a long time, and he got to do some pretty cool stuff. And I think that's what kind of got me wanting to do like competitions. But also like I do have my concealed handgun license. So that's one of the first things I did when I turned 21 was go out and get that. Especially since the world has just been a changing place, right? It's not the way that it's always been. So that kind of got me into playing with handguns a little bit more, because, that's not something you really hunt with or whatever. But that got me playing with handguns. And then, my dad was doing some competitions, and I was kind of getting some, like offhand training from him on just kind of, how to manipulate stuff and that sort of thing. And, then I started to kind of become an adult with adult money.
That's a scary.
So started to kind of figure out, what I like to do in my free time. I had my eyes on a 1911, and I bought that thing like 2012 or something like that. And I really kind of turned that into my competition pistol. So I got a local gun club here, Temple Gun Club, that does a Thursday night steel. So during summertime, whenever it's, doesn't get dark till 9 o'clock or whatever, they have a Thursday night little like league. And they shoot steel challenge, and they do the kind of the national standard for what steel challenge is. There's only, I think like 8 different target arrays. And it's just a straight up speed shoot, like as fast as you can shoot it. There's 5 targets, and there's one that's a stop plate. So basically you go from a holster, you hit the other 4 in any order you want, and then the stop plate's the last one. And you shoot that, I believe, 5 times. And I think they drop your slowest score. And then so you get like an aggregate for for that whole stage. World-class shooters will clear that in 5 seconds or something like that for for shooting it 5 times. So they'll literally draw from a holster, hit all 5 targets in 2 seconds, maybe less.
Oh God.
That's not me.
Dude, I don't even think I can pull my gun in 5 seconds and go on target.
go ahead.
I said, I don't think I can even pull my gun in 5 seconds and get on target and be confident enough to hit the first one. I'd be like, yeah, you know.
Yeah, I mean, and all that comes with practice, right? And then, so I did that, and then there's a competition called USPSA, and that's more of like your run and gun. If you see guys running around and shooting a bunch of paper targets and steel targets and stuff like that. And back then, when I got into it, I actually, paid my membership so I could get classified and that sort of thing, and mostly stuck around local matches. So, I mean, that was fun. That just kind of gets the basics of shooting a handgun, and then you kind of go a little more advanced because you're running around. You have to do reloads, and stuff like that. And I was shooting a 1911 at the time in 9mm, but still it'll only hold 10 rounds. Even with an extended mag. So I definitely had to reload a lot more than a bunch of the other people. But, then I kind of got into I don't really like carrying the 1911 because it just feels like you're carrying a brick on your hip. And me personally, I'm not a fan of open carry. And even back when, I don't think we could open carry here in Texas. Like if you had a CHL, you could conceal it, but you couldn't open carry it. So tucking that full size 1911 in a inside the waistband holster, better have a stiff belt. And I'm not a very tall guy, like 5'7", so it's hit me in the nuts if I wear it like appendix or. So I got into Glocks. I always said I never would, but now I have 3 of them sitting on the table here in front of me that I was going to kind of show.
Man, there's something to be said about the. I have a lot of friends that like the Glocks. I own 3 Smith and Wessons. So I mean, I'm sure you have your opinions about that company, but I mean, they shoot just fine for me. And I'm not a competition guy, but that's what I carry is a Smith and Wesson, the little M&P shields.
Yep, I carried a shield for a really long time, and then I like to build stuff. So I have one factory Glock, but all the other ones, I bought a frame, and then I bought a slide, and then I bought the parts to go into it. I think I kind of bought that first Glock and realized Magpul made PMags for Glocks, and they're like $10 a piece. And so I think the SIGs are great. Smith and Wessons are great. Glocks are great. Springfields are okay for their polymer guns. I just kind of feel pick whatever you want. Cause I'm kind of like a prepper guy, I guess, shit hit the fan kind of person. So if I have one Glock, I want to have all my other guns are Glocks. So that way I don't have to buy Smith and Wesson magazines and then SIG magazines and then Glock magazines,
that's a good way
kind of like the ARs. I mean, you can have 20 different ARs, but they all take same magazine. So you don't have to worry about that, So yeah, I mean, I carried the shield for a long time, and then I built a baby Glock, and now I carry this guy right here. So this is actually a Glock 19 that I chopped the frame on. So it'll accept Glock 26 mags, but you can still, I can add a light to it. You can't do that with a Glock 26.
Smaller.
So this has become my favorite gun. So
now, is that something you carry, or is that something that you competition shoot with?
So yeah, and that's a point I was going to make. Some guys see me pull this out and they're like, "Oh, you're going to shoot that little Glock in competition?" I'm like, well, yeah, I carry it on my hip every day. So why wouldn't I shoot the gun that could potentially save my life or somebody else's life?
Right.
Why wouldn't I shoot that in competition?
I mean, you're probably more familiar with that one because you stay up to date with it, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, if I had a shield. I didn't shoot it that often because it was oh, this is my pocket gun. This is my, carry gun. And then I'm like, well, I'm not going to take it to a competition because it only holds, 7 rounds or whatever.
Yeah.
Really great to carry though. I mean, and I think at some point if you're proficient kind of with one, you can kind of pick another one up and be fairly proficient,
Yeah. Probably definitely in your shoes, shooting a bunch of different ones. And in my shoes, I can probably figure it out after 40 or 50 rounds. But I bet that in your shoes, you could be like, okay, yeah, like I don't shoot this gun all the time, but it works in a similar fashion. Here's the safety, the south slides, recoil and everything, and you could figure it out after pulling a mag on it.
Yeah, and with that too, like, yeah, I could shoot it good, but like if shit were to hit the fan, right? Like you don't have time to figure it out, right?
No,
so
you got to know.
Probably you're going to pull your gun out, and I mean, really, like if you ever pull your gun out, like in a self-defense situation, like at least for me, like I feel like if it's coming out, I'm already in fear for my life. I'm already, at that point. Because I mean, I've been in some weird situations where I was carrying a gun and the gun doesn't come out. Like that's how you go to jail, right? So you have to know that. So like just kind of being ready to use it, but that's what got me into, like I said, I kind of shoot rogue or whatever, like where I won't use a USPSA number to try to get like points in the national registry to be classified shooter, like to say I'm an A, B, C grandmaster, whatever, which are all things in USPSA that like once you keep shooting and you go through things called classifiers, your rank kind of goes up. But yeah, I mean, that's like this one. They actually introduced carry optics because a lot more people are putting red dots on their gun. That was not something that existed a few years ago, because like if you had a red dot on your gun, you had to shoot an open, and then you're shooting against guys with $10,000 race pistols that are purpose built to shoot competition. Like you couldn't carry them. They've got little thumb holders and all kinds of stuff. I mean, they're just built for competition. But when that came out, it was kind of cool because it gave me a way to actually compete against other people. I actually don't even remember if the rules allow a light, but I carry a light. And the rules have recently changed too, where you can actually carry like an appendix holster. So I think the last pistol match I actually shot, I was literally shooting from appendix carry with a spare magazine with this gun, how I would carry it on a day-to-day basis. So like, did it put me at a disadvantage in the competition? Yeah. But does it put me in an advantage in a crappy situation? Also, yeah. So that's more what I care about.
Yeah. No, that's kind of, you were talking about open. That's kind of the same thing in archery. You have your open competitions that I would shoot, and there's usually like a hunter's class, and then there's open competition. In a hunter's class, you can use multi-pin sights. You can't use single pin or magnifiers or anything.
Right.
Your bow can only shoot so fast, and you're shooting grained arrows of a certain weight in a hunter's class. And then you get into the open class, like you were talking about, and say you just wanted to move to a single pin sight, because you can dial the range in if you're familiar and do it like that. But you're still in a like me. I have a single pin sight, but my bow is still set up in a hunter's setup. I just like to use a single pin when I'm shooting 3D because it's it's easier to look at. But then you open yourself up, like you were talking about. I want to use a red dot just because I can see it more clearly. But then, for myself, I use a single pin sight, and then now I'm opening myself up to the, 34 axle to axle bows that, have 48-inch stabilizers and magnifiers that can ping at 100 yards. And I'm like, well, I still can't compete with that. So it's like, do you stay in the hunter's class and, try to run the table with something on a competition that is really used for the field, or do you put the one pin in and try to compete with guys that at least setup wise are ahead of the game? So it's kind of interesting there. I did want to ask, going back in the conversation a little bit, you were talking about 1911. You still shoot that in competition, and why that gun? Because I've always been intrigued by the 1911, just because it's like that. I'll say nostalgia. It's probably the wrong word, but that nostalgic like piece. Like you look at it, the silver with the wood grain. What's in everybody's heads right now for what
I'll have to pull mine out because it was actually I pulled some rifles out so we could look. But so that was like I was a 1911 guy like through and through. I'm just like, I need to have 1911. And I think that came from my dad, because he on duty carried a Springfield TRP for years. And so I was like, I want a 1911. And so the safe door is heavy. Don't put your fingers in it because it effing hurts.
I got one. I'm aware.
So whenever I first got this, it was not this color. It was a completely stainless steel. And I wanted 9mm like for competition. And then a few years back, I had it Cerakoted Magpul FDE down here, and then Magpul. It's like stealth gray or sniper gray. Like it looks black, but it's actually kind of more of a bluish gray. But this is like no internals really changed on it. And I remember whenever I first got it, my dad, they used to have these law enforcement competitions, and he would go and he took that so he could shoot in a specific division, and ended up taking like 3rd place in the nation in one of the deals with that gun right there. So that was pretty cool. Like I kind of felt bad because it was like my first, like, I mean, the thing was like $1,000, you know, it's probably the most expensive thing I bought like 10 years ago. And like right after I got it, he literally like, it's like, let me take that to nationals. And so he did, and actually like, you know, kind of placed with it in one of the divisions. But yeah, I don't know. There's just something about something about a 1911.
Yeah, the way it looks and just the
and I know like all the boomers out there are going to be mad. They're like 45 ACP. That's God's caliber. But you know, it's like I went 9mm. So like, I mean, it's just super soft to shoot, super fun. It's a heavy gun. This is one of those guns that I will never sell.
Yeah.
Because it's just, I mean, it was like one of the first ones I bought, and it shoots lights out. But yeah, I think there's just that like nostalgia, like, and seeing my dad had carried a similar Springfield for years and just put thousands of rounds through it. You know, I was like, man, I gotta have a 1911. My only regret is I wish I would have got like a tactical version or like a carry version that has you know, an actual bottom rail, so I could put a light on it or whatever. But I mean, that's your pretty classic like 1911
I don't know.
platform.
I think there might be,
like,
there might be something
like I said, this will be the one that never goes. Pass it down to my kids, you know, eventually or something. But that's and no, I don't shoot it that often anymore. And I think that's just because I kind of started carrying Glocks, and like, I mean, even in this little guy right here, like with a flush mag, it can be 10 rounds, or if I run the extended 12 rounds. And then being a Glock, I can literally put like a Stendo in here, a 30 round mag, like it'll all go in here, you know? So that's kind of like when I carry just like either the flush mag or whatever, just to, you know, be a little easier to hide. But then I can carry like a Glock 17, or Magpul makes 21 rounders, 27 rounders that aren't like massively huge. So like with carrying one gun and one magazine, I can have 30 plus rounds on me. If I was going to do that with the 1911, I'd have to carry 3, you know,
three
then
mags,
going into 4 mags, like just because it only holds 10, you know. And I think that's the biggest like downside to it, but it is an accurate mofo.
So. I believe that. Yeah, I've never shot one, but I think it's kind of in that, it just like, I don't know, like one of those things, like I gotta have it. Like the 19. There's a few guns for me, and I'm not huge into the gun world, but it's probably all driven from movies, right? For myself, at least, movies, and you know, my grandfather was a police officer, so you know, way back in the day, what he would carry and stuff. So the 1911 is on my list for what I would want, but I'd have to have the classic stainless steel, you know, wood handle grip, and I'd probably shoot it once and be like, I got one, you know.
I did keep the grip, so it did come. It was all stainless, and it did come with the Cocobolo, I think, is a wood, and it's like I have those grips saved because I didn't ever want to get rid of them. I did put on these rough grips. But yeah, I have those wood, and they're engraved with the Springfield Armory, like cross cannons and stuff like that. They're actually in the safe because it was like, that's something I want to keep.
Sure.
It was hard for me to Cerakote it, but
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it
I
looks
also kind
good.
of, huh?
It looks good.
Yeah, I mean, it looks good. I kind of got tired of it being like all stainless,
Mm,
and just being like just a super bright gun, I
yeah.
guess. And I just didn't love the that it was all stainless. And Springfield actually makes some with their like gun coat or whatever they call it that are like OD and in black and stuff like that. So I thought it was I have a FDE color infatuation, so I was like, I got to do it this color.
Yeah.
I was a little nervous about the slide because I went with that super dark gray, but it actually came out looking like pretty damn good, I think.
It looks nice. Yeah, the 1911 would be the one, and then the other handgun I have to have. I don't even know a brand or anything, but I'd have to have just like a 6 shooter, man. Just a revolver, just whip it out and whatever the old school one, and then for a rifle. At some point, I got to buy myself a short barrel 30-30 lever action, just John Wayne it,
So you're straight up like talking about this last year for me. So you're in Texas, I know. You hunt in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to buy a revolver. Like I was like, I want like a little pocket carry revolver or whatever. And I ended up buying a Taurus. I know they're cheaper, but I put a ton of rounds to that damn thing. Um, and I bought the little 3-inch 357. So usually when I'm going hiking, I could put like 2 rounds of snake shot in that thing because I mean there's damn rattlesnakes all over. Rattlesnakes, water moccasins.
Yeah.
Like when I go fishing down at the river, like that's what I carry. Because and also I feel like if I ever had to like for some random reason a meth head found me out in the wilderness, like I feel like those first 2 rounds of snake shot like to the face probably wouldn't feel good.
Feel good.
I know it wouldn't kill you, but I know it wouldn't feel good either.
Yeah.
So like, I bought that and I actually carry it on occasion just in my pocket. But we went to Colorado a few months ago and I was kind of nervous. I'm like, well, I know they got black bears and stuff like that. And, we're going to be out hiking and I don't really know how remote we're going to go. So I actually bought a larger frame, like a end frame, I think it is Taurus, 7-shot 357 mag. And it's got a little ported barrel on it, and that thing is just like, I mean, I like all the guns that I have, but like that was one of the things that like made me giggle when I bought it. I was like, I bought that thing. I was like, man, I straight up feel like John Wayne. And then that turned into like on YouTube and stuff, everybody's got the whole like tactical lever gun thing going on, man. And I bought me a 357 lever gun, and that thing too gave me those giggles when I got it, man, because I could shoot 38 special through it, which like doesn't recoil at all. And I bought a 9mm suppressor 8 months ago or whatever. It's not here yet, but I plan on turning that into a little night hunting gun, because like you load up some 38 special, like it's pretty much subsonic already, so it's going to be like Hollywood quiet.
Yeah.
So I think that'd be like an awesome little like pig gun, within 50 yards or so. And I know the 357, like I would have no problem like smacking a deer with it at 100 yards. I mean, it hits like a freaking freight train. I mean, way harder than a 223 does, which is surprising, because it's a pistol round, but coming out of the lever gun, it hits like a freight train.
Yeah, the first deer I ever killed was with a 30-30 short barrel lever action, and I think I was hooked at that moment, right? I mean, the deer was at like 45 yards, so dead doe, and iron sights, no scope, iron sights, right? You just lining it up and popping it, and and just loading another round in case you felt like getting up. And I think it was at that moment I fell in love, and I was like, yep, at some point I'm gonna buy one of these because it was my buddy's gun. So I can't get that moment out of my mind. So I'll own one at some point, and I think at some point I may have to run it back and shoot a deer iron sight, from a bow blind or something real close. Because
I'm hoping my buddy will take me out, because I did some reloads for it, because 357 is pretty expensive, but I've got some reloads for it, and like I want to shoot a pig with it, and I want to shoot a deer with it. Like if he takes me out to his place, I'm probably going to take that because I'm pretty confident at 100 yards with it. I just have a little red dot on it. But I was trying to shoot some water jugs to see how it expanded and everything. And it went through at 100 yards with the 357. It went through like 4 or 5 water jugs, and I never found the bullet. But like when it hit that first water jug, like it just, annihilated it. Like I've hit it with some, Full Metal Jackets and stuff like that, and it'll poke a hole. But whenever it hit that first jug, like it just, and I never found the bullet. The 38 special, though, I was able to find that. I was shooting it at 50 yards just to see how it expanded. Because, hunting, I feel like even if you're shooting a coyote or a pig, like I think there's an ethical standard that you have to have something that is going to kill them. Like I wouldn't take a 22 and put it in a pig's shoulder. So that's kind of what I was trying to determine is like, if I do shoot some, subsonic 38 special at 50, 60, 70 yards or whatever, is it something that I think is going to humanely kill an animal? And I do, with, some of the personal defense rounds out there. So I think that'll be a cool little setup. And with the 357, 100 yards, really, if I had a scope, probably 150 yards, I would do, because it still holds like way over 500 foot-pounds of energy out to about that, that distance. So I want to this year.
Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be cool. You'll have to get some footage of that. I'd like to see it. I feel like this is a pretty good segue.
I'll see what I can do.
Going into, do you shoot any rifle competitions, or is it purely handgun?
No. So I guess I'll finish up on some handgun stuff. So this is this is my carry gun. Like I said, it's a Glock 19 that I cut the frame on to be shorter. For reference, this is a full size 19, so you can see really the only difference is the grip. I do have a bigger light on this one, because I think like blinding somebody in the face is a good thing. But I built them basically the same. They pretty much have they don't have the same red dot, but this has a TLR 7 because I carry it. This has a TLR 9, but the ergonomics are the same. This is just a longer light, carries 2 batteries instead of 1, but it has the same button controls as the other light. So, manual of arms is the same.
So why have both? Other than just wanting to have both?
The number of guns you should own is always like N plus 1. So like N is however many guns you have, and then plus 1. So
got it.
But yeah, so this one's just a full size. So this is like I will shoot this in competition too, but I built the internals all the same. And I'm probably going to go ahead and put a compensator on this one just because cool.
Yeah. So,
but yeah, this one will be a little more fun in competition. This one I carry, but it's also nice to I'm kind of a fan of 2 is 1, 1 is none. So I usually will have one on me, and then I do have a backpack that has like a concealed carry pocket where I will maybe carry a secondary in there. So they might all be with me.
What are you sacrificing in the shorter? In the 20, what is it? You have a 19 and a 26.
So this is a 19 actually. I just cut it. So I actually did this work myself. I took a 26 length magazine, put it in here, cut it. I don't know how well you can see it, but I beveled the edges to kind of make it look factory. Yeah. But the 26, you can't really put like a decent light on. So that's why I kind of went this way. And plus, I think it's a little easier to shoot than a 26.
Okay.
Because you do get, you get an extra half-inch of barrel or whatever. So there's, some terminal ballistics there that you get with a little better velocity.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Are you really sacrificing that much with the shorter barrel, in your opinion? Or, does it come down to your shooter?
I have a red dot, so I think the whole argument of sight radius is pretty moot point. But I think this is easier to shoot than a 26 because a 26 is like a half-inch shorter here. You can't put a light on it. But I don't really think so. Reloads are a little harder just because your hand is so fat. So like, this is a loaded mag, but like, so that's basically, this is a 19 mag, so it sits flush in the other gun, but I can still get a good grip on it. But as far as reloading, because my hand is here, like the magazine won't always drop free. So sometimes I will have to reach up and strip it, just because it'll be rubbing, my hand here, because there's just no grip.
It just doesn't drop naturally.
But I mean, really, no, I don't think you sacrifice much. And the only reason I cut that grip is because I'm pretty skinny. And so if I carry appendix, like I can hide a barrel, as long as my leg, right? Like, so I can hide that, but the grip sticking out is what people would see. And I don't like people seeing it. And then, like I said, this is just a full size, like a normal, like not cut one. So like, the more light, the better, but this is just a little more compact option for like everyday carry.
Yeah. No, I'd have to.
But I think like somebody who can shoot or practices, like, I don't really think you sacrifice a whole lot.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. And that's one of the main reasons I went with the M&P shields, is because that handle is so short. You were just showing, a picture, a description of it, and that handle comes to about here on my hand. And like you said, I can hide. It doesn't matter that, the shield, I could have gone with a longer barrel, but that, holding only 6 rounds is not where it's poking out on my butt cheek,
Yeah. And that's kind of what, like, I laugh, like Glock has come out with like the 19X, which is basically a Glock 17 frame. So it's got a longer grip with a Glock 19 slide. Okay. So, and their argument to that was, well, like some cops and stuff, when they're carrying it, like they may not care about the length of the grip, but they do care about the length of the slide and everything, because they're getting in and out of cars, that sort of thing. So like, obviously the longer the gun is, the longer the holster is. And so like when you're trying to sit down, you've got a long holster. But I think something like this, and I kind of heard about this, I think it's a Personal Defense Network was a guy that like kind of did this the first time, or that's how I heard about it. And he was like, that's like my ultimate gun, because you have a little bit longer barrel. So you're obviously getting a little bit better velocity, which turns into better performance, like in tissue, right? So talking like self-defense. But like also you can add a light to it, because a lot of the lights that you can put on like your, like your shield, you get, I think they make the TLR6 or something like that. And the thing's like, 100 lumens. Like, it's just not, it's better than nothing. But the ergonomics of it are not that great. Like, you have to like push it on the side versus having like toggle switches. And
I've got a TLR6 on my my shield that like stays by the bedside table. The one that I don't carry, it's got a sight on it and a light and stuff. But yeah, it's just, it was like the only, well, you may be able to tell me I'm wrong, but it was like the only light that I found that would fit on that tiny ass little rail on an M&P shield.
And that's like, exactly what like I didn't love, because I actually have a Glock 26 frame that I'm going to sell, because I had built a 26 and then I put a 19 slide on it, which you can do, but it still wouldn't accept a light. And like I kind of see both sides of the argument. Like, I always carry a handheld flashlight anyways, but you better be good shooting one-handed. Yeah. If you don't, and even good shooters, like, you have to put in a lot of time shooting one-handed, right? Because if you're running a flashlight, you have to hold the flashlight and then you're holding your pistol. Yeah. If you mount a light to the gun, now you can have your full grip, toggle it with your thumb, and you're just going to shoot better. Yeah. Like, I don't really care who you are. You're going to shoot better with 2 hands on a gun than you are with one. Yeah. You might be pretty damn proficient one-handed, but so I do still carry a flashlight because I don't, my gun's not a flashlight, right? So like, if I need to see something,
right. You're not just gonna, like,
I'm not gonna pull my gun out. But
you're out at dinner and you're rocking the gun to try to find something in your trunk of your car.
Yeah, exactly. So I carry a flashlight there, but yeah, and so I guess, that kind of brings me to the point of like, everything I shoot in competition, I don't have anything that's like, this was built for competition. I have nothing like that. It's like, this is built for something that fits in my lifestyle and scenarios of how I carry. I'm going to shoot that.
Sure.
in competition.
Yeah.
This one, it's definitely a little bit easier to shoot because you get the full grip and everything, and definitely like I don't conceal carry this, so having a bigger light's always like better. And I will probably compensate it, just like I said, because cool. And I'll probably shoot this in competition a little bit, but like if I was ever gonna like, I don't say shit hits the fan or whatever like that, like I would probably be carrying open carry in like a Safariland holster that locks it in place, like pretty much what police wear. And I'd probably opt for the bigger gun to do that. Yeah. Just, I think there are some advantages, but I don't think you lose a lot with a smaller one. And that brings me to this guy. So this is a 22. This is that new Glock that came out, the Glock 44, and it is the exact same size, pretty much same everything as a Glock 19. So I can go shoot this sucker at $4 a box of 50 to practice and basically have the same, manual of arms as a Glock. And if you don't know what manual of arms is, that just basically means like, you're not going from a shield to a Glock. Like I'm going from a Glock to a Glock to a Glock. So like the triggers are the same. The magazine releases are the same. The, slide release is all the same. Like everything is there. So I'm not having to like consciously be like, oh yeah, I'm shooting a Glock today. I don't have to work the safety, or, oh, I'm shooting a 1911 today. I've got to work the safety on it, So that's kind of why I just went with those. And I think that's a cool relatively one. Like you shoot MMPs, they have an MMP version too that looks just like their compact or whatever. That's a 22. And, it's nice for new shooters and honestly me myself, because I can go out and do a whole range day for $10 in ammo versus this, and the magazines are the same size and everything. So like I literally didn't have to buy anything new, same setup, and I'm good to go.
Yeah, no, that's super nice when you can shoot the 22 rounds for cheaper. And I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying about having the same gun. I mean, you're 100% the exact same gun that you would shoot if you were shooting a 9 or a 40 or something in a competition or in real life. But the only thing you're sacrificing, and what I can see on the surface is recoil, right? I mean, you're not getting that feedback from the gun because you're shooting a smaller round, but like you said, your safety's the same, the trigger pull's the same.
Yeah, but you still are getting recoil. I mean, yeah, it doesn't feel like a 9mm.
Right, that's what I mean. Yeah.
The gun is still like you're still getting the noise, you're still getting the blows the slide back. I mean, it's the same thing. So like yeah, and that's amazing. That's and
especially for the competition, or if the the weekend warrior wanted to shoot, being able to shoot something that is the same as their gun but for a lot cheaper seems very appealing.
Exactly. And then like, so here's like my competition belt, and it's more of like a battle belt setup, I guess. Yeah. But I like it because it has this padded interior, so I don't have to wear like an inner belt. Okay. And then I run Safariland holsters because they do have retention. But it's super slick, chopped frame with a TLR7 on here. It will lock into place.
That's nice.
I can literally take this same gun here with this, bigger light. It'll go in there and lock into place. I can even take this one that doesn't, have an optic or a light on it. It'll go in, it'll lock into place. So one Safarilands are BA holsters, but like I went with this one, so I don't even have to change my holster. I can literally run all three of those guns in the same holster. They all use the same mag pouches. Everything's the same.
Is that Safariland? Is that the name of the company?
Yes, and that's like if you see a police officer wearing a holster, they're probably wearing some version of a Safariland.
I just texted you to remind myself to look at it because the holster that I have, I bought a alien gear for my MMP shield only because it came with. I have a different one for conceal that I carry, ankle or belt or whatever, and that doesn't go with it. But if it's outside the waistband, I've got I've got that one, and I like the way it fits, and it also has the attachment to where I can clip it to the side of my bed or whatever, and it does well. But I don't have anything like that literally. I mean, you just showed
And
us
these
that runs
have
three
a
different guns.
thumb release.
Yeah.
And actually, like in some of their promos, they have like a dude hanging from a helicopter from the holster. So
really?
he like literally like they fasten the holster up somehow, and he puts his pistol in there, and it's like he's holding from it, and then he releases it, and that's how he like parachutes out of the helicopter. But they're like, I mean, in no way, shape, or form sponsored by Safariland. But I think for like an outside the waistband holster that has to have some kind of retention, like an active retention device where you have to actually push a button to remove it. I think they're top tier. Like they're one of the best. That's what you see military guys wearing, and they have that one has the least amount of retention. It's just a thumb button, but they have some of the ones where you have to like flip the hood forward and slide back. I mean, that's for police officers that like if they get in a fight or something that like the gun's not going to fall out, and also the guy can't just reach over there and grab the handle and pull it out.
That's cool.
But I like that too, because I do shoot some like 2-gun stuff where you'll be shooting a rifle and you may be like running around with your rifle with your gun holstered. And I have seen it's a disqualification. It's a match disqualification, but I have seen some people in those where they're running along and they have these like fancy newfangled like competition type holsters and loaded guns hitting the ground, when they're running around. And again, that's a DQ, but it's also like not good. I mean, most guns have enough safety mechanisms built in that they're not going to go off, but seeing a gun fly out of somebody's holster and land on the ground at a full sprint with a bunch of people laying around is always like unnerving.
Yeah, I mean, screw the disqualification, right? I mean, we're talking about people's safety at that point.
Yeah, there's a lot of rules that go into that, and a DQ is a DQ. Like if you they have something called the 180-degree rule, which is pretty stupid. I could do a whole talk about that, but basically, if you break 180 degrees from like downrange, it's a disqualification.
Yeah.
Which there's always some where you have to run up and shoot and run backwards and shoot, and you don't have to run back, like keeping your gun pointed down range until you get to where you're going, and then you can turn and shoot, right? But you could be shooting at 179 degrees this way, and people are standing over here, so you're actually not 180 degrees from people.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. I see
so it's like, I mean, I get the safety aspect, but like, there's, you talk about real world situations, you might turn around and run. Like if I'm trying to get around, I'm going to turn around and run. But, having that training scar, I guess, where your gun's always pointed at the back, but you can shoot, you can shoot everything this way, but basically if it passes your shoulders, you're done.
Yeah.
Pack your shit, you're going home for today.
Yeah.
You're not like kicked out forever, but that's a match disqualification.
Yeah, go home and think about what you've done. Go sit in the corner.
Pretty much.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Well, cool. So yeah, get into some rifle stuff if you do it.
Yeah, so rifles, I have way more fun shooting 50 rounds of rifle throughout the day and hitting some target that's 500 yards away than I do blasting the shit out of pistols all day and hitting up close targets.
Yeah.
So I have like a purpose-built competition gun. Well, really, I hunted with it for a long time, but it weighs like freaking 20 pounds. And that's this is a semi-custom built. It's a Remington 700, but it's chambered in 260.
Okay.
So it started out as a 308, got chambered into 260. I got the barrel pretty cheap from a guy who used to shoot PRS, which is a precision rifle series. But this barrel is like an inch in diameter. So this gun literally weighs like, I don't even know, 15 pounds or something like that.
Oh, wow.
I have packed it on hunts. Not fun.
Yeah, I believe it. My bow weighs about 12, 13 pounds. So I'm aware of.
Yeah. My ultralight hunting 300 Win Mag it weighs 10 pounds, but I like to put good scopes on them versus having like some lightweight loopholes or something. I like to have like tactical turrets where I can dial it, or having a useful reticle where I have hold offs in the reticle. Because I mean, I've been in hunting situations, especially like rifle situations, like, you may take a 200, 300, 400 yard shot, and you better be proficient with it.
Sure.
Talking about ethics again, like if you go out and practice 300 yards, 400 yards, and you're comfortable with it, and your equipment, and you have a good, bullet construction and all that stuff, by all means, I have no problems with you hitting a mule deer 400 yards.
Yeah.
If you know how to do it. It better not, the first time you shoot 400 yards, it better not be
at a mule deer,
at that animal, right?
Yeah. I'm with you there.
But with everything that's been going on, with ammo shortages and everything, and my local range it's kind of NRL based, and NRL is the name of the like entity that kind of puts on matches. But it's not a sanctioned NRL. So it's kind of like I said, it's one of those rogue type things. They do both rimfire competitions where we'll shoot 22s out to like 200, maybe even 250 yards, which is pretty damn fun. You're shooting little teeny targets. Like even when you shoot at 50 yards, you're shooting like the tip of a bolt, maybe. Like it may be a 1/4 inch target at like 50 yards, and that's hard.
Yeah.
I remember when I took my brother to his first one, he's like, "Oh, we're gonna go shoot 22s. It's gonna be, it ain't gonna be nothing, man." And then like he ran alongside me and was like, "Holy shit! Like this is not." He was like, "I was expecting it to be like I was gonna use iron sights." I'm like, "No, dude, you gotta have scope." And I actually pulled out my 22, which it's a cheap 22. I mean, this was a Savage Mark II. I bought it at Gander Mountain when they were still around, and then I bought this stock, and I ended up finishing it myself. And I have a way too expensive scope to be on a 22, but yeah, this is what I shoot in 22 competitions. But like I said, you're hitting 1/4 inch targets at 50 yards, 60 yards. Yeah. And I mean, 22s are not the most accurate thing in the world.
Sure.
But that's really fun, and that's a really cheap way. And going back to what we were talking about, I bought a bolt action. So I can, a lot of times when I go to the range, I'll take my 22 and I'll shoot, maybe 50 rounds of 22 before I start trying to shoot a 300 Win Mag or something like that. And no, a 22 doesn't feel like a 300 Win Mag, but learning your trigger control, learning your breathing, blah, blah, blah. That's great to do on a 22. And kids can shoot it, fiance shoots it, and I still think it's pretty cool to hit something at 200 yards with a freaking 22,
Yeah. Well, and I mean, if you were to run out there and throw 50 rounds of 300 Win Mag, you need shoulder replacement surgery.
Well, also I'd need to take out a freaking second mortgage too to pay for the damn ammo.
Not only financially, you'd have to have rotator cuff surgery and have a second mortgage.
I do shoot. I have a Christensen arms that my dad got me. So it's a full carbon barrel and everything. It's pretty light, but I do have a suppressor on it, and I was really amazed at how much a suppressor, one, tames recoil, and two, sounds on a 300 Win Mag.
Really?
So that's that was one of the things. That was my first suppressor I bought. Actually, was a 30 cal suppressor, and I'm like, shit, I just spent, I don't know what it was, $500 on it, $200 tax stamp. This thing better not suck when I get it in a year, and I was just thinking, I mean, cause you can't really do anything at that point, right? You've already paid the government their taxes on it, and you've bought it and had to wait forever. But I was pretty impressed, with it, being a pretty lightweight rifle. It's not bad. And I just reload for it too. It's kind of my reloading bench back behind me, but I don't think I've ever bought factory rounds for it, just because when they were hard to find, and they're $75 a box for 20. Yeah. That is not cheap, but it's a hunting rifle. So if we're going to go on a sheep hunt, or, go and we get Nil Guy or something like that, I'm going to take my 300 Win Mag.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I've shot a 300 Win Mag before, and, so that's a good rifle. I've killed a few deer with 300 Win Mag. way overkill for whitetail, but it'll get the job done. But no, it's an expensive round, but like you said, you also have to think about you're not shooting it competition, or you're not shooting it, on a daily basis. Like, at least for me, I don't feel comfortable anything over 200 yards. So, I don't practice enough for that with a rifle anyway. I don't practice enough for that. But if I was going to practice, the 22 might be a better option to throw out, just to kind of get the feel. But
oh yeah, and I mean seriously,
bucks, like $75 a
fling at 200, 250 yards with a 22. You're getting the wind drift. You're getting the drop. Yeah. I mean, like, shooting a 22 at 200 yards is like shooting a regular gun at 400 or 500.
Yeah.
Right. Like a centerfire cartridge, because I mean it weighs 38 grains, I think. So I mean a good wind is going to push it at 100 yards, whereas even a 223 300 Win Mag, a good wind's not really going to. You put it on the shoulder of a deer, you're going to hit the shoulder of a deer. It's not going to move it 6 inches or 8 inches or whatever.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. It's also that, you're talking about $70 a box or whatever it is. Well, I'm hoping I only have to shoot one round, right? So I mean, if it's $75 a box, cool. I mean, that's kind of the same thing I roll with my arrows. I mean, you understand, you shoot some archery too. It's like, well, with the tip and the nock and the arrow and everything, this arrow's $22.50 or $27, depending on what tips you're running and stuff. But it's like, all right, well, I only plan to shoot
hopefully you can pick it up after you shoot it, though.
yeah, you get it. Hopefully you get it back, unless that animal runs off with it and decides to snap it on something. But yeah, you're like, okay, well, I'm only shooting it once, so I mean, it's not as bad. I'm not shooting it 100 times.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that being said, like, I can't remember the last time I shot my 260. I reload for it too, because 260 is kind of a uncommon caliber these days. It's basically a 6.5 Creedmoor.
Okay.
It's actually older than the 6.5 Creedmoor. It didn't have the marketing that Hornady had. So it's pretty much one and the same almost.
Sure.
But my local club actually like rebuilt the range to be able to shoot 500 yards. So like actually tomorrow I'm going to a 500 yard competition. And they set up targets at, different distances with different barricades. Like they might set up some barrels. Like they had one of them cheap, flimsy ass chairs you see in like auditoriums, that they like lay on the side, and you gotta shoot off of that. Ladders, so like crawling in and out of a ladder, like you have to shoot from this rung and then come down and shoot from this rung. And with that, I've been shooting a 223 AR. It's the one that's actually behind me here. And I'm a safety Nazi, so I like to put little chamber flags in there, so when it's not loaded. But this is an 18-inch AR that I built myself. I actually won that competition one time. The stars happened to align because I'm just shooting pretty basic 55 grain full metal jacket, because that's the cheapest thing to buy. It is by no means a match round. But I mean, and I'm shooting against some good shooters, guys that are actually in the PRS series, come there, on off weeks and shoot, and they're shooting, fancy calibers like 6mm Creedmoors, 6 BRAs, like stuff that I never even heard of. These little just like hot shot 6mm cartridges, and 223 is really like a pretty piss poor long range round. Wind blows it. Like even if you're shooting, like match grade 77s or something like that, it's still getting pushed around quite a bit.
Yeah.
But I think that's something that's, made me a better shooter, because, I kind of talked to them, and I don't know if you know about mils and MOA, but it's it's an angle of measurement basically. And it's pretty much like how much does your bullet drop, right? So, like 1 MOA is 1 inch at 100 yards. For layman's terms, basically it's like 1.047, I think. So, basically 1 MOA at 1,000 yards, you multiply by 10, so it's 10 inches.
Yeah.
Mils are a little more confusing, where it's like 1 mil is 3.6 inches at 100 yards, and then obviously that doubles at 200, 300, 400, 500. But when I look at these guys, I'm like, hey, how much is your bullet dropping at 500 yards? And they're like, oh, like 2.5 mils, and or 2 mils or something like that. And I'm shooting at 223, and I'm like, oh, mine's dropping 4. And I'm like, well, how much wind are you holding? And they're like, oh, maybe like 0.2, 0.3, which is maybe holding like the left edge of the target for it to drift over. And I'm holding like 1.5, which means I'm holding like
way over here
30 inches to the left. And if you ever get the chance to like spot somebody that's shooting far, if you put a spotting scope directly behind them, you can actually see the bullet fly through the air. There's like a little vapor trail. And I know one of the last competitions, my dad was spotting for me, and he was like, oh my God, that thing looks like a curveball flying through the air. Because, the wind blows so much here. Like, at least here in, I'm a little further south than you, but it seems like the wind just blows here all the time.
Yeah.
And, I mean, we were having like 10 to 20 mile an hour gusts. I mean, I was hitting the target, but you could literally see it like fly like this and then like hook back and then hit the target.
That's so crazy. I mean, you really have to be in tune with your stuff.
But I feel like that makes me better, like if I can learn on something that's ballistically inferior, when I pick up something like a 300 Win Mag that doesn't have a lot of wind drift, like I just feel like it helps me.
Yeah. That's awesome. You really have to be in tune with your stuff.
Do what?
So you really have to be in tune with your stuff. If
I mean, that's pretty much what it is. Like, they always say like elevation is math. So, I mean, it's pretty much just physics. Like your bullet's coming out of the gun at a certain velocity. It loses velocity at a certain rate, depending on how aerodynamic the bullet is. But basically, like, if you're shooting in the same conditions, if it drops 2 inches at 200 yards, it's pretty much always going to drop 2 inches at 200 yards.
Right.
I mean, there's some other environmental factors that will affect that, and it's usually at further distances. But wind is what gets hard, because you kind of got to look at flags and determine, like, is the wind blowing 5 miles an hour or is the wind blowing 15 miles an hour? Because that's the difference between hitting and missing, right? Like, it can be landing at the same height, but it could be over here, could be over here. And so with 223, that's a little, it's a little harder, but like I can get that ammo. So I'm not reloading for it. I just buy that ammo straight up from the store and shoot it. And definitely a lot cheaper than my 260. And since I'm kind of like prepper guy, like I don't like to have guns that are a single purpose. Like, I mean, there's fighting going on in Ukraine. There's riots happening, just everything that's ever happened. So I like to set my guns up in a more like home defense, like tactical type environment. So this is a great like coyote gun right here. I mean, this thing is, I wouldn't mind smoking a coyote at 500 yards with it. Like, no big deal. One of the other ones I shoot that does put me at a pretty good disadvantage is this one here, which is it's a 14.5 that's been pin welded. And I pretty much always shoot suppressed, but it's just got a 1-6 scope on it. So, the other one has a 3-15. So 500 yards, I'm only at 6 power. But I also feel like if the world ever went to crap and I had to have one rifle that I could carry, that I could hunt with, maybe fight with, like if it came to that, like, this would be the one I would grab. So I do shoot this one in that 500 yard competition a lot. And it is nowhere near built for that. This is not something you would ever see at a precision rifle match. But kind of knowing what I can do with just 55 grain FMJs, with a 6 power optic, is pretty cool, like making hits with this thing at 500 yards. That's awesome. And that's a coyote gun too. That's actually what I take coyote hunt more often than anything, just because it's a little shorter and lighter. But I'm a big advocate of suppressors now that I finally bought one. Like, I don't ever want to shoot a gun without a suppressor on it anymore.
Really? Yeah, I've never shot a gun with a suppressor or never purchased one. Obviously, knowing what I just said, and um, I would like to. I don't know that. I don't know that I'd shoot enough to want to purchase one, but I think it'd be cool to have the experience to at least shoot one a couple times. To see how much of a difference it actually makes.
So I like on a 223, it doesn't make a ton of difference. 223 is
Really?
going 3,000 feet per second, I think, out of that 18-inch gun, and like 26 or 2,700 out of the little bit shorter barrel. So it's hard to suppress, but I shot for the first time without the can on it the other day, and I was like, oh my God, I hate this. Like, just the concussion, like, it's just so loud, and I used to be that guy that was like, I ain't buying no suppressor, they're too expensive, and now I wish I had one on every gun. And especially like for hunting scenarios, like going coyote hunting or something, you don't, you're not going to be like spraying and praying. I mean, you shoot 1 or 2 or 3 times, right. And not having to wear hearing protection is nice.
Yeah.
And especially on other hunts too, like I will bring the suppressor for my 300 Win Mag. I know a couple of years ago, I smoked a deer out of a box blind with my 260, and I had a muzzle brake on it, and me and my brother couldn't hear for like 30 minutes after, doing that.
Yeah.
And so I either always carry hearing protection or like, being able to have the suppressor just for that, like not so much for like scaring animals or trying to be quiet, whatever, but it just doesn't produce damage to your own ears,
Yeah. Yeah, being in a box blind and shooting any kind of rifle is just like, God, like
So I think after that, I really started carrying, like, I will always wear like some kind of hearing protection, especially if we go dove hunting or whatever, where I know I'm going to be like blasting a lot of rounds. I will put on a set of Peltors or something, where I can hear ambient sounds and talk to the people around me. But when I pull the trigger, I'm not going deaf.
Yeah, I know that's definitely an important part of it. My father-in-law actually bought me a couple of years ago. They're not over the ears; they go in your ears. I don't know what the brand is, and they were like super cool, and maybe the technology is advanced from now because this was probably 5 or 6 years ago. But you can wear them in, and you can have a conversation.
Yep.
But it like suppresses that range of decibels or whatever when the 12 gauge goes off. So I'll throw it in and we go duck hunting and stuff like that, and I can still sit there and talk and no big deal. But when the gun goes off, it I don't know, it works in some way that I don't know. So those are kind of cool.
Yeah, I have a pair of those too. That's what I was wearing a lot with the rifle competitions because I'm having to get down and get a cheek weld and that sort of thing. And some of the bigger muffs will hit that, and then when they do this, they're not working anymore. So those in-ear ones are great. I actually recently got some night vision. I don't know if you see it up there on the safe, but I've decided to mount it to a helmet because I bought one of the little like skull caps or whatever they call them. That thing was just super uncomfortable, but that's cool for like hunting at night. If you're going pig hunting or whatever.
Sure.
But I just put it on a helmet, and then I've got the little Peltors that go on there, and I bought the cheap ones, man. They're like, they were like $45 or something, and they work way better than the Walker razors, in my opinion. Like, I wore my razors dove hunting, and I was dove hunting on some public land here, and I could hear the gunshots, but I from the other hunters that are out there, because it's obviously public, so there's other people around.
Yeah.
But I couldn't tell where they were coming from. But with the Peltors, they have like directional microphones. So like if I hear a noise back here, I know the noise is back here. I don't just hear the noise. So I thought that was pretty cool. So I'm probably going to get a couple more pairs of those, because I wear them, dove hunting, duck hunting. Even if we're sitting in a box blind or something, I will usually, or even out like backcountry type hunting, right? I will usually kill them in my pack. And if it's cold, I'll just wear them all day because they keep my ears warm. But yeah, that's invaluable, especially if you've hunted with your dad. Like my dad can't hear very well anymore, and I know his ass didn't wear hearing protection all the time. And, I kind of want to try to avoid that for when I'm, 50 years old, still
Amen.
retaining my hearing as much as I do shoot.
Amen. Yeah, for sure. Well, hey, before we get into this next point, I've had way too much coffee and water. I gotta go to the bathroom real quick. So we're gonna take a little break real quick and refill coffee or whatever, and then come back and we're gonna talk about some CHL stuff before we wrap it up. So give me just a minute, and
cool.
And we'll run.
I'm gonna do the same thing while you step away. I'm gonna do it too.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, coffee and water.
In a second. All right. That was much needed. I was sitting over here like a 5-year-old in the car that's like, "Mommy, I gotta stop. Mommy, I gotta stop." You know.
I get it.
Yeah. Well, cool. Let's. I'm gonna get into
before we get into the CHL thing. I did want to mention that, like, I don't think people should be scared about competition shooting. Like, if they want to get out and do it, I know a lot of local clubs do it. And especially, like, as we're kind of rolling into the concealed handgun conversation, I think you owe it to yourself to either be an asset or a liability to society, especially as a person who owns a gun. And that's why, like I said, I will a lot of times bounce back and forth between these guns that I had on the table, like all three of those Glocks, the 22 to just get trigger time, you know, at a lot cheaper rate because I know how expensive ammo is. Shooting the you know, the one that I carry more often, and definitely rotating that into the like pistol competition because I do carry it. And the more I shoot it, the more proficient I am. And especially with like the competition world, like they do have some shoot, no shoot targets. Like you do have to understand that it's a game, but as far as like having the fundamentals of, you know, transitioning from one target to another, you know, coming around the corner and there's a, we call them hostage targets where they'll turn one of the normal targets around backwards. So it's all white. It's like a no shoot. So if you hit that, you get points deducted, you know, so there's a lot of critical thinking that has to happen. There's dudes that totally game it that don't care about that. I do because I like to have more of like a tactical mindset or practical mindset, I guess, around it. So, you know, like being able to mount a light to the gun. You don't see a lot of lights mounted to guns at competitions. Mine's mounted to my gun when I'm at home. I'm going to shoot it like that. Mm-hmm. But there's always a lot of people that are willing to help. There's even kids, you know, I don't think I've been to a competition anywhere where there wasn't somebody like that's like, oh my God, this is your first time. Okay, cool. Come with me and we'll help you and walk you through it. Make sure you're safe, make sure you're practicing the fundamentals, you know, that sort of thing. But it kind of gets you to an advanced level of shooting and being proficient, just like your bow stuff. And the same thing I think with rifles. Like, do I hunt with my 223 that often? No, but I get a lot of trigger time behind it. And shooting off the awkward positions that we do, like you do any kind of backcountry hunting or anything outside of a box blind, you're probably not going to lay down prone and shoot from a bipod. You're probably going to have to shoot from your pack. You're going to have to shoot off of a rock. Yeah. You're going to brace up against a tree, right? And you don't want the first time you do something like that to be pulling the trigger on an animal or, with the handguns, like in a defensive situation. You want to have already done that stuff before. And I think that just makes you more proficient, both at like self-defense and at hunting type scenarios. Like, and that's why I have more fun with rifles, is because like I like to rifle hunt, and shooting off the weird stuff just helps you when you're in the field. Like, oh, I'm going to shoot off this twig, right? Like, what it's like to have something that's swaying in the wind because, you've shot off of a ladder or a janky auditorium chair. Yeah. Like you have that practice, so you kind of know how to react to it in the wild. And then especially when you start pushing out distances, you start to learn your drop, you start to learn what the wind does. So it makes you more proficient at being able to hit, an antelope at 400 yards or a mule deer, at 300 or 400 yards or whatever. I still think the extreme long range stuff is bad, but as long as your bullet, your caliber, the bullet construction, and you've done it before, I think that opens up your ethical boundaries to be able to take an animal.
I would agree. That's definitely the number one priority is ethics, and it's good to hear from the shooting community of guns. In my opinion, that the people willing to help. I'm very much of the camp that the more the merrier, that want to do it. Just because it's your first time doesn't mean that you shouldn't come enjoy it. This isn't just my thing to do. I don't own the sport, and I'm not the best at it, and I'm always continuing to learn. But that doesn't mean that somebody who's never picked up a bow before shouldn't pick up that bow, and that I can't help them just because it's my thing, right? And I think that's exactly what you were saying about it. I mean, just because you own X amount of rifles and spent countless hours of time practicing and researching and knowing exactly what your equipment stuff is doesn't mean that a guy like me couldn't come out and do competition and you wouldn't be willing to help just because it's your thing. So I mean, that's good to hear.
Exactly.
There's a lot of people of the opposite camp that are it's like, nah, this is my deal, like why should I help you, like I did all the stuff on my own. Like, that's kind of bullshit in my opinion. Like, you have somebody that wants to be out there, wants to be in the outdoors and try something new and expand their range of things to become a better person and learn new things, and you're gonna be an asshole. Like, I'm not of that mindset. Like, if you want to try it, let's go. You got questions, shoot them to me. I'll if I don't know the answer, I'll
runs people off, and then it makes people not like it. And right. I mean, shoot, I would say especially at the rifle, and I've been to a couple big matches. There's a place in Navasota that does the Texas Precision Rifle Series matches, like their national type matches. And dude, you can go there and shoot their loaner rifles. Like, they have high dollar ass rifles that they're like, here you go, shoot this during the match. So if you don't even have a rifle and you want to come shoot a rifle match, like, they'll be like, here you go, and have somebody help you through it. And then like everybody will help you change gear. Cause I do use some, like, they call them pump pillows at their rifle matches and stuff, where you can like put under your arms so you have bracing, and like rear bags and front bags where you can set your rifle in there. And there's always somebody that doesn't have that stuff or has never bought it, and you're like, here dude, use my stuff. Like, go for it. You need a bipod? Here, use my bipod. Like, or, oh, your gun crapped out, well, here's my gun, and shoot my gun the rest of the match so you don't have to go home. And I think at least in the precision rifle series, I've seen a lot more of that, where people are like, oh yeah, dude, here's all of my equipment. You can shoot all of my stuff this entire match,
that's awesome.
Just so you have fun and you don't feel at a disadvantage or whatever. And I think that's awesome for the community.
That's really cool to hear. And that's great. That's good. Well, yeah, let's I don't think we need to spend a whole lot of time on it, but Texas CHL and constitutional carry. Let's talk about it for a minute. I still have my CHL and renew it. I mean, you told me you still have yours, but in Texas we have constitutional carry to where you don't need it. But in other states you still need your CHL. So why do you still have it, and why are you going to continue to have it?
So I still have it because we travel. So Texas, and you can look all this up on the DPS's website. Also, there's a free app through the USCCA, the U.S. Concealed Carry Association, that has it shows a lot of the rules and stuff like that. But on Texas DPS, they say who we're reciprocal with, which basically means it's another state that recognizes our permit. So if you're going, so like take Colorado, for instance. Colorado, we went there earlier this year. We knew we were going to be hiking. I don't like to travel without a gun. Part of it, like I took my Glock, the one that I carry, and I also took, we were talking about revolvers earlier. That's part of why I bought that revolver, is because I knew we were going to be potentially in bear country, and I really hadn't been to Colorado much, so I bought a 357 Magnum, with some bear defensive loads, because I didn't want to be hitting a pissed off bear with 9mm, with my rounds that are designed for personal defense, that may penetrate it or may not penetrate it, right? So I wanted to know what the rules were. First, I want to know if we were reciprocal. So yes, we are reciprocal from them. So I went there and then I looked at the rules, and they actually have a magazine rule of you can carry no more than 15 rounds in a magazine. I live in Texas. I literally had to go through all my shit to find a magazine that was under 15 rounds and find my factory Glock mags that came with a gun when I bought it, because I normally carry like 21 rounders as my backups. But those are illegal there. So, I mean, that's one thing. You really need to call the states to get some of their rules. But the biggest thing is if I was like, oh, Texas has constitutional carry, and I don't know if Colorado does, but I didn't care because I had my CHL, right?
Gotcha.
So if you're going to a state that requires a concealed handgun license and they're reciprocal with Texas, just keep your shit up in Texas, and then you can carry in that state.
Yeah. No, that's
but if you let it lapse, you can't carry in that state.
Right. I mean, that's a huge deal, even if we have constitutional carry. And, I'll make the point that I think constitutional carry was a big moment in Texas, whether you're for or against it. But it was a big moment politically. And personally, besides being affected by the outside world, but on my day-to-day basis on how I react to it, it doesn't really make a whole lot of difference to me, because I'm still carrying my pistol conceal. I don't really care for the open carry thing. If I'm carrying a gun, I don't want you to know that I am, right?
Yeah.
There's no point in me carrying a gun and then somebody else either feeling insecure about it or knowing that I have a weapon on me that they can try to use to their advantage if something were to go down. So the constitutional carry thing, to where you could carry it regardless of your stature in the CHL, didn't affect me personally, because I'm always going to carry it concealed anyway. Like I said, if I'm carrying a weapon, there's no reason you need to know about it. And if I want you to know about it, you're going to know about it, and it's going to be too late. So what's the point? So I still have my CHL for the reason that you just said, for the reciprocal. In other states, we go back and forth to Arkansas a lot, and they are reciprocal with their rules, right? Just like you mentioned in Colorado. So you can carry, and we always do, just because. But if I didn't have my CHL, it would be a little different. So just because you can do one thing in one state doesn't mean you can do the same thing in another. So that's a good point to make.
Exactly. The magazine restriction, I was like, really? Yeah. But I followed it because it's not worth getting hemmed up, with law enforcement about it.
Especially if it's something
really
that
who's gonna,
you don't have to use.
Again, they're not going to know unless something happens, right? But you don't want to walk that line where or if I do get pulled over and I'm like, hey, I have my CHL, because I know here in the state you do have to declare that you have your CHL if you get pulled over, right?
Right.
I'm not really sure how Colorado was with that, but I like to do it anyways. I like to let them know, like, hey, I'm armed, just maybe because I have family in law enforcement or whatever. I just, like to make it known. But yeah, I also carry concealed, because if somebody's going to, break in, or, you're at a convenience store or the mall or wherever, right? If somebody sees a gun on your hip, I feel like that's going to put you as being a target. Because you're going to be perceived as a threat immediately. And they're going to want to, I mean, it could go two ways. They could go, oh shit, that guy's got a gun, I'm not going to rob this place. Or they could go, I'm going to smoke that guy first before I rob the place.
Yeah. And then,
and then what good is that? Right. Yeah. And I hope to God, I never have to use it. But what had me started was, going to North Lake with you. I worked at a racetrack gas station, down the road, and I would work there till 10, 11 o'clock at night. And I was also a poor college kid and I lived in a shitty part of Irving.
Yeah.
So it was like, yeah, I have some form of protection on me. And, I encourage anyone to read the penal code. So, I personally didn't learn anything in the CHL class because I had already read the provisions in the Texas Penal Code.
Yeah.
As far as that, as far as the rules, and that kind of comes from probably having the law enforcement father.
Yeah. Most people don't know that or aren't going to go read it.
It was good. And, people get kind of upset about the constitutional carry because they're like, oh, well, now it's going to be the Wild West, blah, blah. I'm like, do you know how many people in Texas are carrying guns already that you have no idea about?
Yeah.
And
some don't even have CHL. They're just carrying it because they've always carried it, and they're like, no law is gonna, whatever. And I don't agree with that method, but there are countless number of people that do that are like, you know what, I've been doing this since I was fucking 12 years old. Why should I change now?
In my initial CHL class, like one of the questions, they asked, why do you want to get your CHL? And one guy's like, well, I guess I want to be legal now. Yeah, he's literally been carrying his gun for years and it didn't have his CHL, but decided to go in and get it. And like, personally, the CHL class is a joke. It's a box I checked. Like, I would totally recommend anybody that carries to go get some kind of training from somewhere, because the CHL is not training. Like, I'm sorry, like I don't care who you take it from. It's a bare minimum. They don't really teach like force on force. They don't really teach defensive handgun. They say, can you hit this target? And I don't even know, do you even have to pass a test anymore? Like, as far as shooting, I don't think you do.
I got my CHL so long ago that I don't know. I would assume there's still a shooting test, right? At like 6 yards or whatever BS.
I don't even know if there is, because I know like when I took mine, it may have been more than an 8-hour class, because I've had it for years now too. And there was a range session and blah, blah. And I know back then you had to actually go requalify whenever you renewed your CHL, because there was people in my class that were just there renewing, and they had to go do the shooting portion. Well, that's been even reduced. So I just got my letter in the mail to renew it for next year on my birthday, and I can just renew it online without having to go shoot. I have mixed feelings about that, because I feel like one, I shouldn't have to ask my government to be able to defend myself. But two, even with shooting, there's a lot of people that pick up guns, load it, throw it in their purse, throw it in their pocket, never go shoot it. And then if they have to use it in a defensive situation, one, they may get themselves killed because they don't know how to clear a malfunction or whatever. But two, they shoot like shit, and they're, a liability, in my opinion, because, if they're in a crowded shopping mall and they're like, oh God, bang, 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 right, like, that's not good. So I do, kind of like, should people have training to carry a gun? Yes, but also I shouldn't have to ask my government to do it either.
Yeah,
And I think that's a matter of holding people accountable to their own actions, right? Like, I want to carry a gun. I choose to be proficient with that gun. Do I know how I'm going to act in a shooting? No, I don't. Like, I'm not going to try to say I'm some badass that's going to run towards gunfire. I might shit my pants the first time I hear gunfire.
Sure.
But at least I know. I've had two situations where I've pulled my gun. One of them was on a dog, and I actually surprised myself because I was walking down the road and it was pitch black outside. I had a flashlight in one pocket, and I think I had my shield in an appendix holster, and I don't even remember getting my gun out. Like, I was walking to get my truck, and I heard that woof woof, right behind me. Like, oh shit, I'm about to get bit. And I turned around and had cleared my shirt, got the pistol out. I had simultaneously reached into my pocket, got my flashlight, and was illuminating like where the dog was and everything. And that like muscle memory was awesome to me, because I was like, okay, cool. Like, holy shit, when the situation happened, I've done this so much that I didn't think about it. Like, it just clicked. I'm in danger. Gun out, flashlight out, shining the light at the dog, and done. And honestly, I had another one recently. If you don't know about Hill People Gear, you should check them out. They make some pretty cool fanny packs and hunting backpacks, and I actually have this little chest rig that I wear hiking and stuff, and it's got a concealed carry compartment. Well, I was out getting ready for my hunt, and I was out rucking. I had like a corn sack in my pack, and I had thrown that on. I threw my cell phone and other crap in my little chest rig, and I had my pistol in the concealed pocket. And some kids shot me with one of those Orby guns, right? Like, random kids. They weren't targeting me. They had that little air blaster in their pocket, and they were like, oh shit, let's shoot this guy that's walking down the road, right? And again, that was the second time that I've ever like pulled my gun out, and like, because I knew I was being shot by something. Like, they drove up, I had my headphones in, but I had the peripherals running, and so I could hear the sound of it. I could hear them. I felt the things impacting my backpack and impacting my face. So like, my immediate reaction was like, I'm being attacked by something. I don't know what it is. Like, I haven't processed that at this point, right? And I had literally gone into my chest pack with this gun, because I was clearing, and I illuminated the light. It was dark, and I turned and like had the light illuminated on them. And, by that time they were gone. But like, I was thinking back on it, and I was like, holy shit, I didn't even, like, nothing ever clicked in my head to do, like, it wasn't a conscious thing. It was like, I'm in danger, immediately getting in and coming out and presenting my pistol. So like, that training piece was good. No, I didn't shoot. I didn't have a reason to shoot. Like, at that point, like, everything was, coming into like, I know what's happening to me. But that's the importance of training. That's the importance of practicing. I worked with that chest rig probably every other day before we went to Colorado, because that's where I carried my 357 revolver, was in there. I had my GPS and my phone and my Pepto-Bismol and snacks and whatever in there, right? But I was going to the range, and I was literally like, okay, this is where my pistol is going to be. Rip it up and draw the pistol, put a round on it. And actually, I was shooting it in like little bear targets I made. But it was the same difference, because I wear that thing when I go on runs too, because I will slip a little pistol in there, zip it up, and I'll go for my run. I can put my phone in there, have my headphones in, doesn't get in the way. Because I've had dogs chase me. I've been attacked by dogs and that sort of thing. And also, there's shitty people in the world. Like, I live in a pretty damn good neighborhood, and like, that stuff doesn't happen, but obviously it does happen now, because this was just like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, right. No, and I think that's a great point to make about not even shooting, but anything that you're doing, but probably especially shooting, is put in the time to practice, so that way if something does happen, it's second nature, and you know what you're doing, and you don't have to think about it, and you're safe. You're safe doing it, not only for yourself, but for any possible target that you may have to shoot, or may have to put yourself in that situation. Is make sure you put in time.
And I mean, I feel like I'm responsible for every bullet that leaves my gun. You know,
you are.
And
yeah, I mean that's a. I wouldn't say that that's a rule or a requirement, but it's a real thing. You are. I mean, that just because it's left your person doesn't mean that you weren't the one that shot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to put rounds into my neighbor's house. You know,
Right.
like
Yeah.
and what hit them on accident. You know, because that's not good. That
Right.
you know that's just as bad. So I mean, yeah, and that's it's funny because that's one of those things that puts me at a disadvantage in the competition world, as far as pistols, anyways, because you have your full blown race shooters that I would argue do not shoot as well as me. They hit no shoot targets, they will miss, and they will put bad hits on targets, but they do it so fast that the timing structure puts them ahead. So like I'll go through and I'll shoot a stage and I'll have all A zones, you know, like maybe a couple Charlies. And the way that a target is shaped is they're pretty much torso shaped, and there's a little section in the center that's A, little section that's a little wider C, little section wider that's D. And I always kind of get sick to my stomach when I see like an open class shooter that's like really fast that, you know, misses, hits things that you're not supposed to, and that sort of thing, but they clear the stage so damn quick that the pointing structure, you know, like I said, puts them ahead. Whereas I balance trying to be fast, but also meticulous and getting my hits where they're supposed to be. So my time will be slower, but my number of hits will be better. But then, you know, the way that the scoring structure works, they're ahead. But I can't bring myself to just pull the trigger as fast as I can on a target, maybe getting one good hit, getting a real shitty hit, because that's not how I'm going to be in the real world. So I always try to play those games tactfully or tactically, I guess, like as if I was going to have to do them in the real world. You know, part of why I shoot a 16-inch AR with a small scope on it, because like if the world ever went to the shits, that's probably the gun I would shoot, because I could hunt deer with it, I could defend myself with it, you know, I could feed my family with it, but that would be the one that I would use. I may not necessarily grab this big sucker with a big scope and all that stuff, because it's more purpose built, right? It's not a general purpose type thing. You know, and probably the same for you for archery shooting. Like you said, like I have my bow set up one way. I'll go to a 3D match or whatever, but it's set up for me and hunting, not shooting fat arrows, trying to cut lines. Like I'm just trying to put a good hit on target, find those different distances, you know, okay, I'm making a 60-yard shot. Let's make sure that I put a, you know, good hit on it. Not necessarily trying to hit that 12 ring or the little 10 ring outside of it or whatever, you know, and not shooting 30-inch stabilizers with two 30-inch back bars, you know, a bow that you're not going to carry in the field, right? Like that thing's for competition, and that's all it's good for.
Right. Yeah, and we actually shoot a competition every year. They put on a show once a month, and we go out and they do. Man, I forget what they call it. I want to call it live scoring. So you know, you've seen a archery target like a deer or something like that. You've got your 12 ring, your 10 ring, your 8 ring or whatever, and it's the same in competition shooting, right? You got a silhouette of a person, 10, 12, 8, you know, wherever you're going to shoot, and you get different points for it. Well, they'll go in and buy blank targets and use a hand Dremel and Dremel in the location of the heart and the lungs and the liver, and you'll get, you know, 15 points for a heart shot, 12 points for a lung shot, 10 points for a liver shot, and if you miss any of the vitals, you get negative points. Or if you miss the deer in general, you get 0 points, because, you know, at that point, what they're trying to promote is the ethical shot, right? So if you miss the animal completely, yeah, you got 0 points, but you also didn't harm the animal. If you hit the deer in the ass, well, you just injured the animal. It's going to die, but you're not going to find it, so you got -5 points. But if
Yeah.
you play that line, so I really like those competitions other than the ASA, which is just like shoot a 12 ring, or you're trying to spot up to get extra points and shoot the 15. That's this big, but it's also like where the spine is at. Well, I'm not going to hit it there. Like, why do we have to make it a 3D animal? Just make it a square and tell me to hit this dot, right? Like, then there's no ethics in my head associated with it. So I think there's all sorts of stuff that you could go back and forth with there for that. But
Well, I know those bows. A lot of those guys are shooting like 50 pounds, and they're shooting
and I'm pulling 80
lighter weight arrows and blah blah blah. And it's like you're not going to go hit a deer with that because it's that broadhead's going to hit them and it's going to penetrate like 3 inches
right.
and probably not even kill them. They're going to run off with the arrow sticking out of them. Whereas like, I mean, I'm shooting like 560 grains out of a 70-pound bow, and that's for big game. That's a little more overkill for whitetail, but still, like, I think if that's the bow that you're going to shoot, that's what you should be shooting your competition with. Is you should be going around and pulling that 70 pounds or 80. If you're a guy that's got 80-pound limbs, you should be pulling that 80 pounds and know what it feels like to hold that 80 pounds back,
right?
Till you get a good shot off, and then being able to, put a good shoot on, and not shooting a 50-pound bow because you can sit there and hold it all day, and it's not, you're not worried about penetration. You're just worried about accuracy.
Right. Yeah. No, I don't disagree. There's definitely something to be said for doing that what I'm going to call live target scoring. There is what you're going to shoot in a real world situation, because then you can match up with a lot of different people, and it's more of I'll say an even playing field, but also separates yourself from the people that shoot competition all the time. That it's like, wow, man, I can't hold my 70-pound draw on an elk for more than 14 seconds. Well, I can promise you that it's going to take longer for that elk while you're at full draw to get to the point to where you want to punch that thumb release. So if you can't hold it for more than 14 seconds because all you shoot's a 50-pound bow with a 4-foot stabilizer, and yeah, you may be able to Robin Hood every arrow you shoot, that doesn't mean you're going to be able to hold back for 2 minutes when your adrenaline's running to wait for that perfect shot. So, there's I'm on
sitting
I'm
on your knees or
yeah, I'm on both camps there. I think you should probably learn how to do both if you want to do both. There's nothing wrong with the competition style and sticking with the archery world of 50-pound draw, 4-foot stabilizer, and you can Robin Hood every arrow that you put. There's definitely skill there. I have no problem with that, and I can't do it. I can promise you that. I don't practice enough with it, but it's quite possible that I would outshoot somebody that can do that can't shoot what I'm shooting on a daily basis, and just vice versa. So, there's right. You got to sit on both sides of the fence there.
Yep.
And it's the same thing of competition. So, well, that's cool. Yeah. You said you had a competition tomorrow.
I do. It's going to be one of the 500-yard matches. I am going to shoot my 18-inch 223 AR. And basically, the way they do that's all steel, so that's nice. So it's pretty much hit or miss. A lot of the targets are, I'd say, probably no bigger than a kill zone on a deer. So maybe 8 inches or so. Am I ever going to shoot a deer at 500 yards with a 223? No way. Like this, again, ethical, no.
Yeah.
But in a self-defense situation, and self-defense, no. But you're talking about, Ukraine probably didn't think Russia would invade them.
Yeah.
So, I kind of always have that little weirdness in the back of my mind. Like, I want to be able to make good hits on, the IPSC targets, which are like a kind of a reduced silhouette target, at 500 yards. And if I can do that, like, I'm pretty proficient on everything in between. But a lot of that is knowing, what your bullet's doing at that distance and that sort of thing. And we're going to be shooting off weird shit. Like he has a rooftop. I can think of one time he had set it up leaning to the left. Well, I'm a right-handed shooter, and you had to lay on it leaning to the left. So, I was sitting there smacking hits at 300 something yards, left-handed, laying on a rooftop. Was it fun? No. But was it cool to do something left-handed too, and in a weird awkward position, and realize that shooting fundamentals are the same? Because I normally don't think to shoot left-handed at stuff, right? Because obviously you're going to be better right-handed, laying prone, all that stuff, but you might have a weird position. I mean, shit, I've been in deer blinds where it's like that deer's standing over here, and I'm right-handed in this little tiny box. I'm comfortable making a left-handed shot on that. But that's because it's something I practice. But yeah, that competition will go probably, I think we usually start at the 200-yard line, maybe run 1 or 2 stages there, hitting some smaller targets, and we'll back up to 300, 400, and 500. And I do all that with a 223 right now. I have better stuff suited for it, but as far as affordability and being able to continue to do it, I do with the 223. And it's funny mentioning the left-handed thing. We do a 2-gun match every once in a while where it's pistols and rifles, and it's usually up close at targets and stuff. I do shoot a lot left-handed with my rifle in that scenario too, because there's some things where you have to come around, like this way, and the targets are right there. And again, you have to follow those 180 rules, right? So it's a lot harder sometimes, right-handed to try to swing around and bring it through and shoot like this. So there's a lot of times I'll shoot left-handed. So I've gotten pretty proficient, at least with rifles, shooting left-handed if I need to. I'm not so good with pistols, but yeah, the competition tomorrow is going to be fun. I'll have a bipod. I have some bags. I don't know if I pulled those out. Like I mentioned, the little pump pillows, the little pillow you can put under your arm. So if you're you could just rest your whole arm there. And then I have a front bag. It's also like a rear bag. It's a game changer. It's called. It's like a V-shaped bag. So if I'm shooting off a ladder or something, I'll throw it up there, and then I'll throw the rifle in the little V. So I have something to stabilize the front. And some of those things are actually things that I would carry hunting. I'm actually going to order a lightweight version of that game changer bag that I have that it literally weighs nothing. But that's something that I will clip on my rifle for my next rifle hunt. Hopefully I'll be able to go sheep hunting with my brother next year. And shooting off rocks in awkward situations like that. That's a tool that I will use in a skill learned to shoot a sheep at 300 yards off a rock up a mountain, or a mule deer or whatever, even a coyote, right? I probably won't carry around a pump pillow, but there's other things I can do and weird tricks I've learned to get stable. Like you can put a tripod right here and use the tripod as your back rest if you're resting the front of the gun up, like if you're standing or sitting. Even your pack, you can shoot off your pack. But tomorrow I'm actually probably going to wear my Mystery Ranch pack because if you've done any kind of hunting, I know you've been elk hunting and stuff, I might not be able to take my pack off. And a lot of times I don't like dropping my pack for a stock because I might have to drop my pack, stock, make a shot. Then I got to turn around, come back and get my pack.
Right.
And especially here in Texas, it's hot all the time, especially in South Texas. I need my water. So shooting bows with the backpacks on a little bit easier, but shooting rifles, you now have thickness here. So I may shoot it tomorrow with my pack on, just to see what it's like to have that extra length of pull from the backpack and that sort of thing. Because I've definitely been on hunts where I'm wearing my frame pack and I slip my arm out on one side so I don't have anything on my shoulder, but I'm still wearing my pack so I can go. It's really awkward too to walk around, but just doing what you can to make a good shot.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. Well, that's awesome. Good luck to you. You'll have to text me tomorrow. Let me know how it goes. Hopefully you do well.
Yeah, I'll try to film it and see if I can put it on YouTube. I need to be a little better on YouTube by putting my stuff on there, but I'll probably take my DSLR out there and see if I can film some of it.
Yeah, there you go. Cool. Well, man, before we wrap up, is there anything else you want to touch on?
No, I think I'm good. Like I said, anything with firearms, really archery too, but always spend less money on shit to put on your guns. Don't buy a gun and go out and throw a red dot on it and a light on it and blah, 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 and then never train with it.
Yeah.
Like, you will get killed so fast by somebody who practices with a cheap ass high point. And if you're carrying the Gucciest Glock in the world, but you never shoot it, like, you're at a disadvantage. So definitely take, some of that money that you would put into your guns and put it into training. Go find somebody local that'll put you through even basics or like a defensive handgun class, so you learn how to do malfunctions, like how to clear them. You learn your proper trigger squeeze, stuff like that. And by all means, add a red dot later, add a light. I think lights are necessary because things happen at dark. But also, like, see if you can get somewhere to learn doing that. I'm actually going to get into airsoft here pretty soon. And I'm going to get a Glock, just like, these Glocks. And that way I can learn some kind of self-defense things with it. Learn how to use a light in a dark room and that sort of thing, because you can't just turn your light on, because then you're a glowing target for somebody to shoot at, right? So you got to learn certain things, like you turn your light on when you need to, you turn it off immediately, you move around, you turn your light on again. That stuff people don't think about, especially in like self-defense situations. Even if you're just shooting competition, like, get some kind of training or go to competitions and learn from people, but definitely, like, go out and practice. And, you don't want to pull your pistol out after 3 years that you've been carrying in your pocket and it's got dust bunnies and you've never shot it. And, you don't even know if it goes bang. Like, just practice, especially if you're going to carry it. And for self-defense, like concealed carry, like, be an asset to the world and know how to use it, know how to clear malfunctions, know, what your gun does, like where the bullets hit, how far does it drop, that sort of stuff. When you shoot, that kid stopped a mass shooting at 45 yards.
Yeah.
Like, I guarantee he practices, and stuff like that can happen. Like, you just, in this world, you never freaking know, man.
Yeah.
Somebody could have a bad day and you might be stuck in the middle of it with your family, and so that, that's just my, like, big takeaway is practice, spend more money on ammo and practicing than you do on, bullshit to add to your gun to look cool.
I like it. I think it's a great point. Practice is definitely the key to success in a lot of things, but definitely in shooting, regardless of your weapon of choice.
Well, cool, even for hunting, don't shoot an animal in the ass with a 300 Win Mag, because you can't handle the recoil. Like, go out and practice, so you're going to put a good hit on an animal.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, cool. Well, I appreciate you being on, man. Thank you so much, and hopefully we can get you on again. I think we talked about a lot of good points, and hopefully somebody out there learned something. So, like I said, I appreciate you taking a couple hours out of your time or out of your day, and I'll let you go and get back to your life and enjoy your Saturday, and good luck on your competition tomorrow.
All right, thanks, man. Appreciate it. Good to talk to you.
All right, man. All right. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Jeremy and I got to reconnect, and it was a good conversation about a lot of good stuff, and hopefully you guys out there learned something about competition side of things, or at least shooting in general, or guns, or at least have some questions for me or for him now. His social medias will be in the description below, his YouTube page and his Instagram. So if you have any questions about what we talked about and don't feel comfortable reaching out to me, then reach out to him. He's a great asset to have, and would be happy to answer your questions. So reach out to him, and I'll have those below. Thank you guys for watching. We're gonna go right into the trivia question real quick before I sign off. So this trivia question comes from Jeremy, and we are gonna get right into it. So how many safeties does a Glock have? So that answer will be at the top of next week's episode. How many safeties does a Glock have? And I'll get with Jeremy on the answer, and the first one to comment the correct answer, I'll reach out to you and send you some knocked up gear. So like I said, thank you guys for watching. This has been great. Had a blast this morning. Make sure you guys go like the Instagram, follow me, same on TikTok. like I've said before, just choose one, man. There's a zillion apps out there, and as long as you just grab a follow somewhere, you're not missing anything from me. It means more to me than you know. I appreciate it, trying to grow a brand and be somebody you guys can turn to if you got questions. That's what I'm trying to do. So smash that subscribe button and hit the bell so you make sure that you guys get on all the likes, or excuse me, get all the lives notifications when we go live. Every week we're going to try to do it. We're going to take some time off for the holidays, but really we're going to try to do it every week for you guys. But thank you for being here. I will see you next week where we get another guest from my past. It'll be a great time. But till then, let me know if you got any questions. Thank you for everything, and just remember to be still and don't suck.